if it's not a lifestyle, you're always going to bump up against pain and problems of
Yeah.
like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this, or should I work out today? I don't know. No, no, no. If you're already at that point, you've lost, right?
Yeah.
So it's about the prehab and setting things up of like, okay, I live a healthy lifestyle. And part of that lifestyle is, yes, I intentionally move my body. I intentionally do resistance training. Now I'm down to like 2 to 3 times a week.
And now here is singer-songwriter, broadcaster, audio-video artist, entertainment agent, and your host. It's the master storyteller himself, James Kevin O'Connor.
Hey, 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 it's a beautiful day. Yes, a beautiful day indeed to go out west. That's where we're heading today. But before we get into that journey, I'd like you to just take your phone, if you have it, in the upper right-hand corner. You could hit one of those 3 buttons and you could forward this show to a dear friend who may really value the content in this episode. And some of you may remember the episode we put out back in March. Well, we're here for round 2. Yes, it's my good friend Evan Money. He's back for another look. Life to the full isn't a place to be discovered. Rather, it's a place I will help you create. That's a quote direct from Evan Money. He is a mastermind specialist. He's a coach. He's an author. He's a filmmaker. He's a man of integrity. As his wife Susan says, his yes is his yes and his no is his no. You better strap up your seatbelts because we're taking a ride to sunny Southern California from the Music City to hang out with Evan Money.
So where do we go this time, Evan? How about we go into the motion picture business?
Sure. You got the music business locked down. We can talk movies. We'll have a great time.
Yeah. So where did your interest, is this from way back, something you always wanted to do, that you got into producing films? I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, well, it's just like with music, right? To me, and this is just me, but who hasn't dreamed of making a movie? That was kind of my take. So, quick
Yeah.
story: my brother and I, we grew up in Southern California, and as you mentioned last show, right, there was not the silver spoon in our mouth; it was the broken spork, right? That was
Right.
kind of where we were. But back in those days, as my kids like to laugh, the 1900s, and the 80s at that.
Yeah.
So that's when my brother and I were teens. We were blessed to be in Southern California because back then they actually filmed movies out here back then. So
Yeah.
we were able to find our way on some movie sets. We ran around town filming shorts before that was even a term with our VHS camera.
Yeah.
That my mom financed from Sears somehow. It's $5 a month or whatever. And so what was so great about VHS, right? Because there's no way we could have done Super 8 and video and editing and all that stuff. So when you got a VHS camcorder, that's our little tool to film shorts, and there's no video editing. Like nowadays, right? You can do it on your phone. You got all, just the whole, you and I understand what it used to take to create content.
Oh, yeah.
So with all that, we really it was a blessing because it forced us to we had one take. That's all we had. Like if you're gonna make this short, you got no money, you got one take, so you got to get it right. And we had to film in chronological order, so we would go from shoot to shoot to shoot, and make it work. And you better not fall, you better not mess up your line. And so that helped me and helped train me for the later in life. So that was kind of the dream of always doing that. And then my brother and I have a wild tale, which would take an entire episode of. We did cosplay before that was a term. Again, early adopter. My brother was getting into special effects makeup, so he dressed me up, and we went to Salvation Army and got a suit, dyed it purple. We drew because we couldn't afford to buy a real suit. So we drew the pinstripes with a Sharpie
Right.
and a ruler. So we had this wild Joker outfit for you hardcore Batman fans from the Killing Joke version. A few of your listeners know what that is.
Yeah.
And we roll up on Hollywood Boulevard to Mann's Chinese Theater back when you could watch movies there. And for the opening night of Batman, and that was 89, 90, right around that term, with Michael Keaton Batman. And that was pre, any of these superhero movies. And so it was a thing, right? The line was way around the building. It was a huge thing. Long story short, my brother and I, after a comedy of errors, we end up being escorted to the VIP suite at the top of Mann's Chinese Theater. And I'm watching the movie and I'm leaning over the railing, because this is old epic Gothic theater. I mean, the theater is incredible.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to you guys in Nashville, right? Grand Ole Opry, right? Yeah, I was up in the top pews, right? Looking down. And people thought I was Jack Nicholson because they got this guy dressed up with green hair and a crazy suit. And so I got a standing ovation at Mann's Chinese Theater. And I always remember that. And so ever since these experiences, I always dreamt of making movies.
Yeah.
And I watched, because again, I could use again, we're all loyal to our limitations, James.
Yeah.
So my limitation back then was, well, I don't have any money. I don't have any connections, da.
Yeah.
And so I was loyal to those limitations. Number one, because I made them up. Therefore, I'm loyal to them. Just like you, James. You're loyal to your songs because you wrote them. Right? Those are my songs, right? These are my limitations. I made them up. I want to keep them.
Yeah.
But I watched technology start shifting. Wow, now we can film digitally. Wow, now we can do this. Wow, prices really come down. Wow, wait, I don't even need distribution if I don't want to, right? Like, I have YouTube. I have all this stuff. And so finally, one day, James, I'm sitting on my couch, probably like you, and I watched a documentary that I was excited to see. I mean, literally, I was frisking my mail person from the Netflix disc, right? Did it come yet? Did it come yet? Where is it?
Yeah.
I watched a documentary, and I'm sitting on my couch watching it. Actually, this couch right behind me, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, this documentary thing, it can't be that hard. And I'm flashing back to my brothers and I shorts and one take. I'm like, it can't be that hard. There's got to be a way to do this. And so I stood up and said, I'm going to make a documentary. And the next day in the shower, and here's a lesson for the people in the shower. If you ever notice, most people get great ideas in the shower.
Yes.
Probably because their phone's not in there with them.
Yeah.
And most people sadly leave their great ideas in the shower. Most people have a multi-million-dollar shower and they go, oh, what are you talking about? I don't live where you live and I just live in this junky apartment, or I'm over here. My shower's not worth millions of dollars. Yes, it is, because you got millions of dollars worth of ideas still sitting there that you haven't taken action on. So I have a waterproof tablet that I spent all of $20 for on Amazon that's for underwater divers. Well, I can imagine diving not underwater, but for divers, right? And so I put it in my shower. So when I get a great idea in the shower, I can write it down. So it has a better chance of coming with me out of the shower and turning into reality. So God gives me this great download in the shower, Words of Art. I'm like, okay, that's the title. Here we go. So I started with the title. I started with, hey, I had this vision. Earlier I went to, a couple years back, I went to the funeral of Jim Rohn. And I realized, like, wow, we had a discussion, part one, about Bob Proctor and some of this stuff. And I realized, like, the Zig Ziglars, the Bob Proctors, even though Bob was supposed to live to 100, but we can talk about that. But all the greats of personal growth are getting much older, not in great health. And I was like, I need to do something to showcase these great minds. And so God gave me the vision, Words of Art. So I'm like, okay, let's look at words as an art form. And so that's where I started. And I made an intention, got up off the couch, and wouldn't you know, James, the next weekend I'm at an event, and it's one of these personal growth events. They got big names on the stage, and then they have the sponsor, alley, right, where everyone's got their booths. And so there's a particular speaker I wasn't really aligned with. So I'm like, okay, I'll go check out the sponsors and walk around and meet people, do all that stuff. And I'm at this booth that wasn't really set up. And there's a guy like fiddling with stuff. And I was just like, hey, you need some help? And he turned around and said, oh, no, I'm finishing up and da da da. I go, well, tell me a little bit about you. What's your story? He goes, oh, I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm like, you don't say. So just last week, I decided I was going to make a documentary. Now I'm talking to you. And I said, well, who have you worked with? And he started naming all these big names like Les Brown and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's very interesting. I'm like, so no coincidence. God's like, okay, if you want to make a personal growth documentary, here's a guy. Yeah. And so I verbally vomited all over him, James, as you can imagine that I'm highly skilled at. I verbally vomited him my dream all over, right? Like, okay, I want to do. And so he wipes it all off, right? And he goes, here's my card, call me. So that was Saturday. Monday morning, I'm calling him. And he picks up the phone. He's like, who's this? Who? And I had to remind him kind of who I was. And he laughed and he says, dig this, James. He laughs and goes, and you could probably relate a music story to this. He laughs and says, I can't believe you called me. I'm like, what? I go, what are you talking about? He goes, do you know how many people come up to me and tell me they want to make a movie and they want to do this and it's going to be so great and and they never call me. I was like, well, that's not me. I'm like, I'm taking action. Let's make this happen. And so that's why I ended up getting the name for my production company. It's called Take Action Productions. Awesome. Because unless you take action, nothing happens.
It's true.
And for those that are listening that, again, want to eliminate their pain and problems, like we talked about in the first one, in part one, and you're really excited about making your dream come true, whether it's through music, whether it's through film, whether it's through whatever, the only thing that's separating you from your dream is action.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now people say, well, no, I don't have money, I don't have a connection. No. It's the action to go get those things.
Yeah.
And so that's why, again, I named it Take Action Productions. So after doing 2 documentaries, then we started producing different projects and going down this different trail and learning and failing and making all these mistakes and understanding how the Hollywood world turns and how it's upside down right now. And it's even more so, but still involved in that industry and really enjoy the process of that as well. Going back to our off-air part 1 of why is this taking so long? Because that's what every filmmaker says about every project.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long? So that's kind of the story with that.
Yeah, you hit on a really big one. It's the art of decision. And people do that. They constantly invent ways to not succeed by just not deciding, and just like they will not make a decision, and you end up paralyzed and doing nothing, and not a good way to get a movie made.
Well, we'll talk about that from the music side, because I could see that. We're all masters at justifying our inaction, right?
Yeah.
Our justifications are awesome because we made them up, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure in the music world you could call that, hey, writer's block or music block, when it's really like, okay, I'm just lazy and I don't want to finish this music piece. But talk about that in your life in music and how you come up against that. What tools have you used to get past that?
Well, I tell you the truth, I didn't like the business, back in the late 80s and everything. And I kind of formed almost like a barrier against, because I ran into a lot of people that I just didn't like the way they did business. It was, you know what I'm talking about. But it said this should have nothing to do with me as an artist. I still can go and continue my art. And, I was in another career for a long time. As a electrical contractor and telecommunications contractor. I don't know if I shared that with you, that was a lot of the time, most of the time, raising my kids, I was doing that. And went from the humble beginnings to MetLife Stadium and all these professional sports complexes, which was a rush to do that, to be there and doing that, And I always laugh because when they opened the Devil's Arena, the guys that I was working with that built the sound systems were from California and Diversified Sound. And I remember they had my CD and they were testing the system and they always credited Bon Jovi with opening the thing. I said, no, he didn't open it. My music opened that. They were, and it is true. And the same thing happened at Giant Stadium. Well, it was called MetLife Stadium. Like a year or two later, we were doing that job. And same thing, same team was back there. They had just come off of building the Dallas Stadium. And they were in there, and so they did a test with my next album and started playing that. So I had some fun with that. But as far as what you were talking about, creating, I remember as a kid wiring different reel-to-reels together so that I could multi-track, because there was no such thing as multi-track. I learned that from John Lennon, because as a kid, this is how you had to do it. You had other tracks in you, and Les Paul, of course, started the whole thing in the 50s, but you did whatever means you had, you still made the music, and you just kept going. And that was the fascinating part, is going from one to the next as the technology kept coming out. Then they had multi-track cassette. I was the first one to have that. And, your artistry got better with your songwriting, with your vocals, with your guitar playing. Everything kept coming up, because I was always like hands on everything. I wanted to know it all. And to this day, I've kind of kept up with that. And now I work in studios I never even had any idea that I would be working in. And it got faster, more organized, and better quality of everything as you move along. But nothing should stop you from, and my newest thing is to connect to the music business in a way that is through podcasting. And that's going to be kind of my way, how I reconnect to it in a business sense. The branded song, also connecting me as a writer and an artist with people who want a bigger brand, I think is a different way to go. And I feel like I would rather share this wealth of fun rather than, I don't need to keep all this to myself and it's all about me. It's more like, how can you make it cool and make it really interesting and fun for everybody?
Yes.
And that's the joy of it, And it's like, when you're all in on a project and everybody's coming up with ideas and the thing, and, you can just let people's imaginations run and go, yeah, that is cool. Let's try that, rather than be all about, well, I wrote it this way, or, I arranged it like this. You hold on too tight and you miss all the gold, that's coming out.
Oh, no, it's so good. Yeah. What's coming up is we do that with our lives with God, right? Like, no, I got it this way. And God's like, man, I want to do so much more. No, we fight for our limitations, right? Like, I see it this way. And God's like, let's go here. Oh, no, I want to stay, right? And it's this.
Well, you brought it up in our part one meeting. We were talking like part one, part two, right? About the Bible. And like you said, somebody who wants to just grab it and read it all the way through. Now, I have a friend who just started to do that, and she said she always wanted to do this, and she made it like a project. She's going to go a little each day, and it took her a long time. But she was really ingesting it. And for me, I've been reading scripture for a while now, and I still come away with different applications in my particular journey in life with that same part in Matthew that I read like countless times. And I read it with fresh eyes once again and said, I'd never picked this up, And I think God wrote it in that way that we're not supposed to just be a one and done and say, there's lessons in there for us every day. And every time we visit with that and pick up new meaning out of scripture that we've read again and again. So I really enjoy that. And I try to pick it apart a little bit and say, what is really being said here? Am I really digging down and getting underneath the value of this? And to your point, if you take your time and like really, really enjoy it, not just, I'm going to get through this psalm and be done and I'm going to go have breakfast. It's like, well, that is your breakfast. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my take on that. But yeah, the music business has been through some peril With streaming is a as a as a consumer, I love it. As an artist, I sort of hate it because it's taken away a lot of things from artists, but it's also given them opportunities too. Like, for instance, Spotify, you have to look at that as, well, it's more of a marketing tool than, unless you're a huge artist, and then you can make money because they just go into millions and millions of streams, and the cumulative effect of that turns into, some decent money. Yeah. I'm sure. I haven't experienced that, but that, I think that's the way you have to look at it. So you have to embrace what's there for the taking and kind of mold your career as, what do you want it to be? And I want it to be entertainment but service. I want to find a way to serve others and really do something cool with it. I'm not really much of a bar guy. I don't like being in bars playing. It's just, I gave that up years and years ago. But places where people really want to listen for the nuances and the silences, because the best part of music is sometimes the silences. And, I love all that. And a noisy bar with, I got 22 TVs on this wall and 19 over there. And, everybody's texting and trying to get dates and order drinks and eat and yell and scream. And it's like, you can't hear yourself think, let alone what somebody's singing a song about. But some people like that. That lifestyle and that, that environment for it is just not for me. Other places are for me. So, but it's good. I tell people that you have to enjoy your life in music. Don't let the music business dictate who you are as an artist. It has nothing to do with that. If you create good music, keep doing it. And just, you find another way to sustain your craft and your artistry. You can do it that way. I became an electrical contractor not because I had a desire for that. I wanted to fuel my music business and my ability to go in the studio anytime I want and record music. So I didn't need it.
And your ability to open up billion-dollar arenas with your music. Yes!
Yeah, that was fun. People couldn't get over that. There's like, hey, that sounded really good. They're telling me after. I wasn't there when they played it the first time. But yeah, it's you got to find your own way and stay true to who you are and what you are, So tell me about you and your work. I mean, you're in really good shape. So I was checking out some of your photos. You look like a UFC fighter, man. What do you do? Like, what's your training every day? You a gym rat, or you run? What do you do?
Well, that's an extreme pain point for me, because back in part one, I shared a little bit about, I grew up in my early 20s in a toxic bodybuilding lifestyle.
Right. Okay. So do we want to not touch that, or?
Well, no, because it was, again, it just shows you. So now it helps me understand where my limitations come from and where my body dysmorphia comes from. So I appreciate the praise, but when I see myself, I don't see that. Okay. I see, like the old fun houses, carnival mirrors, right? Like it's a distorted view. And I tell my clients and friends and, people that I mentor all the time, like you can't see the label. You can't see the outside label when you're inside the bottle. Right. And when you're inside the bottle, right, looking out, everything's distorted. Yeah. So I'll do that on a music sense, right? Like you as a podcaster, right? Anyone listening to this, just picture yourself when you hear yourself on a recording. Yeah. So, and you listen to it and you go, I don't sound like that. That's not right. I don't sound like that. Or when you see a picture of yourself, whether you're playing, analyzing a golf shot or, goofing around with the kids or whatever, you see yourself on video and you go, I don't move like that, do I? I was jumping so high, right? And you're like, jump like this. Yeah. Right? So that's proof that we can't hear and we can't see reality. Yes. We don't see the world we don't see things how they are. We see things how we are. Right. And so inside this bottle, we see this distortion. And so I'm in this distorted, toxic bodybuilding world of just do anything. The answer was always more. Get bigger, stronger, faster. And so my thing was like, okay, well, if I work out 7 days a week, twice a day, then I can get bigger, stronger, faster, not understanding genetics, not understanding diet, like just doing everything wrong.
Yeah.
Trying to get like these guys in the magazine, not even understanding that how fake that is, pre-social media, all that stuff. And so
Right.
that has shaped kind of my body dysmorphia. But I've now discovered that it doesn't matter whether it's bodybuilding or I've got a client partner that I work with. He's working out his perfectionism and his work, his toxic work habit of, I always have to be working and I can't take a day off because if I take a day off, I'm losing ground.
Yeah.
And that was just like me. If I'm not in the gym, I'm not getting bigger. When the
Right.
reality is your muscles only grow when you're resting, not when you're
right.
lifting weights. And
Yeah.
so I finally realized, wow, less is more. Wow,
Yeah.
the less I work out, because I started, that was in your 20s, you can pretty much do anything, right?
Yeah. Right.
Then,
Yeah.
come my late 20s, I started, I tore both my pecs, tore my hamstring, like everything's
Oof.
falling apart.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm doing what the magazine says. And then finally I realized like, hey, less is more.
Yeah.
I need to rest more instead of work out more.
Right.
And, changing my diet and understanding like, hey, how do I make this? Here's the key to help the people listening that are looking for these kind of goals. It's like, okay, if it's not a lifestyle, you're always going to bump up against pain and problems of like, I shouldn't be eating this, or should I work out today? I don't know. No. If you're already at that point, you've lost, right?
Yeah.
So it's about the prehab and setting things up of like, okay, I live a healthy lifestyle. And part of that lifestyle is, yes, I intentionally move my body. I intentionally do resistance training. Now I'm down to like 2 to 3 times a week, and I'm doing a lot less and I'm getting a lot more. And it was just this constant dynamic journey of, hey, those foods don't work. Hey, I can improve this. Hey, I can improve that. Hey, I can improve that. I clicked on the Tom Brady stuff. Maybe I started about 10 years ago. I hired, I could name drop, right? A-list, whatever guy's trainer. And he was the first one that got me started on pliability. And then I was always fighting him on it though, because I'm like, no, I need to be lifting. And he's like, no, you need to be moving your body, getting out of this plane, right? You need to be more fluid and dynamic. That's why everything's torn and red. Oh, okay. Then when I read Tom Brady's book, I really locked in like, okay, pliability. It's about what I'm doing before the actual workout, right? I'm preparing my muscles for what I'm going to be doing. Then I'm going to do my short and sweet. That's me, like short and sweet, quick workout. Then I'm going to recover my muscles with a little bit of pliability, and then I'm going to put quality food in me. And that is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's not like, I wonder no, that's just in me. That's how we move it. And so whatever you make a lifestyle, then you don't have to think about it anymore. Then all the pressure's off. You never just, hey, this is a lifestyle. This is what I do. And so I'm still would love, we'll go old school here. I still have my He-Man action figure on the shelf in my office. And I still look at his arms like, that would be nice. But I realize like, okay, let's look at my genetics, my body structure, what I have to work with. And I'm now getting better at receiving my bride's compliments and other people's compliments and saying, hey, you know what? I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes. And that has been, but again, it just goes down to like, how do I make it a lifestyle? Because if I had to think about it, I've already lost it. It's too late. So that's a little bit of that long journey for me. But
you're happy now.
Well, yes. And I learned along the way, right? This slow journey, right? It wasn't and I love hearing the stories. Don't get me wrong. And if people are, you're going to have people on your show that are like this. So I don't want to put their episode down, but I hear people that are like, okay, I was down in the dumps. Everything was going wrong. I was bankrupt. I was paralyzed. I was this. And then boom, God said this. And it's been straight up from there.
Right.
And I'm like, good for you. But my journey is like this 10, 15 year long of like 1 degree at a time. Like, and it was just finally getting the ship in the right direction, right? And then per our episode number 1, right, dynamic versus static, now that the ship's going in the right direction, or plane or ship, whatever, I realized like, hey, I'm off course most of the time. So how do we course correct quickly so we can get to where we want to go. So all of us listening to this podcast, we've all been on an airplane before, right? This analogy is so simple, but it lands for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You get on an airplane, whether it's private, commercial, whatever, and you're flying from Nashville to LA. You're going to come see me, right? You get in the air, that plane is off course 99% of the time.
Right.
But what are the pilots doing, or the autopilot doing? It's just course correcting.
Yeah.
Little bits. Boop, boop, okay, course correct. Boop, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Have you ever been on a flight? Hub, there's a Southwest hub down there. You're taking a little Southwest flight or whatever. Have you ever been on a flight and have the pilot flying out of the cockpit, break down crying, going, "Oh, we're of course, it's such a failure." No. Like, look, what's great. So that's the joy in the game of life for me, is understanding it's just about these quick course corrections.
Yeah.
And if I'm not happy now, I'm never going to be happy. That was the trap I finally got around of, like, well, I'll be happy when we get here. I'll be happy when we get here. Let me talk last show. I'll be happy when I make my first movie. Well, I'll be happy when I make my second movie. I'll be happy when I get my doctorate. I'll be happy when I do this. Right? Like, if you're not happy now, you can never be happy. And the grass is always greener where you water it. So it's like, okay, how do I water my own grass and realize that here is always the best place to be, where in a static human nature mindset, it's always like there looks better. Well, as soon as I get there, it'll be good. As soon as I get there. And the second we land the plane on there, then they're here. And then we're like, oh, am I going to just get there? Oh, am I going to get there? Right? And a lot of us have been in that doom loop cycle. So to go back to your happiness point, yes, I'm happy because that's a choice. And understanding that when there's times when I'm not happy, I look at the choices and like, oh, I'm holding on to a limiting belief, or I'm choosing to react instead of respond. And like, hey, let's move towards that. So there's a lot packed in that short question, but thank you.
So many, you're welcome. And so many people, it's almost like this should be taught in grade school about the happiness factor, because everybody is the same. Everybody falls for it. And what you just said is repeated ad nauseum constantly in every country in the world. If I just get this, if I just get, it's always the same thing. And it's like, no, sorry, but that's not the way the world works. It's really, I think achieving goals are really great, and it is there's a satisfaction in it, but it's not the end all be all. It's like when you finish the goal, you're not really any more necessarily happy. I think you feel the sense of accomplishment, but again, what I said in episode 1, is that all there is? Wait a minute, where's all the nirvana? It was there for a split second, and then now what? So it's like time to set another goal and just try to have a life of sustainability and productivity, if that's what makes you happy. And I think if we can opt for that, then we're doing something positive, and do it in a way that gives service to others, which is kind of the icing on the cake, for most of us.
Yeah, that reminded me, because I want to go back to a music thing. When you talked about that, I'll just quick story. So my bride and I went to the most incredible marriage seminar that we've ever been to. And it was a Pat Benatar concert.
Oh,
and
wow.
So I surprised her. Pat's one of her favorites. And this was maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And, Pat and Neil are getting up there. So I'm like, hey, this could be the last year. And they weren't playing close. So I had to drive like an hour and a half, but it was worth it. So I surprised my bride with a Pat Benatar concert. And I'm watching this concert, and they're in their 70s. They're like my bride's parents' age. Both of my parents are in heaven now. So I'm looking at this concert. First of all, Pat sounded fantastic.
Yeah.
And we've all seen shows, right, where you can tell, whoever it is kind of like phoning it in, right?
Yeah,
they're playing, going, okay, how soon can the set be done so I can get out of here, right?
Yeah.
No, like she sung "Hit Me With Your Best Shot" like it's the first time she ever sang it.
Wow.
Like she was on MTV back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this woman's in her 70s.
Yeah.
And she's excited to be here. She's excited to be singing this song. And you know what? The audience is feeling it. I'm feeling it because my bride's, we're digging the song, but also I'm watching her Neil on stage. And I'm like,
Right.
this is the greatest marriage seminar ever. Like
Yeah.
every song, Neil would go get a new guitar
Yeah.
and he has names for them. And so like that's his thing, right? He loves his guitars, right? So he goes, all right, here's Genevieve, and then here's so and so, and he's just in the moment with his bride of 40-something years, playing these songs like it's the first time they've ever done it, and they are blessing us. We are blessing them, and it was just this incredible experience. And I'm like, again, some people get tired of their songs. They never got tired of their song because of the impact and the joy and the blessing. And it was like, and they so inspired me because I'm like, that's what I want to be doing when I'm 70 years old.
Yeah.
That's what I'll be doing when I'm 75, or I think they're almost 80 now. And I'm just like, that's it. So it's from a music component, right? But that's sustainable, right? Versus, if Pat said, well, if I could just go quadruple platinum, then it'll be good, right? It's like, okay, we did that. Well, now what? Well, if I could be the most watched ever video on MTV, okay, yeah, we did that. Okay, what now?
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, let's go play and do our thing. And they're pouring out joy. In fact, every show they get younger. And I'm like, the secret.
It is. It's doing what and Boz Scaggs comes to mind because he was like, he pretty much quit the music business for a while because he goes, his pressure from his record company was so ridiculous. And they're like, you got to sell more records. He said, I sold 1.5 million records. When is it going to be enough? Like he didn't really care. He wanted to create good music and make a living, but it's just, they just press and press and press. And at times, I always go back to, you got to do what's right for your creative abilities. And like you said, to Pat and Neil, they not only love the music, but they love each other's artistry. And it's so apparent when you watch them, because I've seen them live, and it's like, it's so obvious. They're fans of each other's work.
Yes.
And it's like you said, that's the perfect marriage. It's like, couldn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
So I think if we all do that, if we all stay true to who we are as artists, creators, whatever we do, then your chances of having a really happy life are pretty good, and keeping the checks and balances like we talked about, the self-observation, the checks on, where am I in my awareness? Am I reacting instead of interpreting, and we all get caught in that all the time. All of a sudden I'm reacting to something. So all of these things that we've covered this evening are pretty cool tools, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we got 4 minutes and 25 seconds because I couldn't get to my new credit card yet. So Zoom is still like spanking me. So why don't we talk about something cool on the way out, and I'll give you plenty of time to do a send off. Tell me what you're most excited about, like what you're working on right now, just without giving away anything in particular. Is there one thing that comes up besides the kids? Because I know that and your wife, that's the most precious things to your heart, Evan. But anything else as far as exciting projects you want to share, or just something you're working on?
Oh, well, all of them.
All of them. That's great. That's awesome.
So I'll just hit them. So I know there's other ADD visionaries out there that like to do a lot of stuff. And so, again, takes one to know one, right, James? So super excited about my bride and I's Marriage of Greatness movement.
Yes.
Where, again, we're looking for those couples that are not like, oh, we're going to get divorced tomorrow, but the couples that are like, hey, man, things are good, but I know they can be better. I want to get to greatness, right? Not good enough, but greatness. So you can go to marriageofgreatness.com if that resonates with you. For those that are into deep personal growth, like real deep personal growth, we do a Men of Greatness in-person deep dive mastermind where we spend all day away the phones and we just sit and go deep and do not leave. And really, I've got an amazing, and actually the guy that gifted me the format that he's come licensed and gifted me, he's from Tennessee. And we have a proprietary format that allows men to really just come in, take off their armor, and really get real and grow, but in all areas. So in their health, in their finances, in their relationships, in their spiritual and their emotional growth. So if that resonates with you, we do that on a quarterly basis, small group, and it is fantastic. So you get the contact information for me via the end, your show notes and all that. And then the other thing, my partner and I just launched is called IGWT. And you and I, James, know what that stands for. And if you don't, it's on the back of every piece of money that we have circulating in the United States. And it is a direct selling company. And we're excited about reimagining what you can do with direct selling, reimagining, like, hey, taking away all the junk and the negativity, almost kind of like reimagining the music business. And so what if we created the world's greatest relationship marketing company? What would that look like? So that website is IGWT4me.com. And there's some cool videos and other stuff on there. So those are some of the tip of the spear, most exciting things I'm working on, James.
Awesome. How about we do a little prayer to pray us out here and celebrate this not only this two-part podcast, but this new friendship, which I feel so blessed and appreciative of.
Absolutely. I love it. You gonna do it? You want me to do it?
Yeah. I'll do it if it's okay. Yes. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this blessing. Thank you for connecting Evan and I. Thank you for all the subjects that we covered. And we hope this has been a blessing to people listening. All of the things that you give us each and every day, especially the comforts, the food, the shelter, a place to sleep, things that many people in this world do not have. You take care of all of our needs, Lord. Lord, we thank you for the blessing of this. We will pray over Evan and his family, Susan and the kids, to keep them healthy, keep them happy, and may you bless all of his businesses now and in the future. In Jesus' holy name, we give thanks and praise. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right, brother.
Thanks, James.
Hey, if you guys like what's going on here, please leave a great review in the Apple Podcasts. I've left a simple review process in the show notes, and we'd really appreciate it. And also, don't be shy. Forward this to your best friend because you know they need it. Hey, if you need some coaching, hit up the link in the show notes. It's calendly.com/Dharmic. And you can take a little chance with me, and I'll get you on your way. That's a wrap for me today. I'm your host, James Kevin O'Connor. So until the next time, when we meet again, I'll either see you on the socials, or I'll see you from the stage. Ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. If wishes were windows, I'd open one and find that freedom is really a simple state of mind. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride with me? Ride on, we can untangle all the mystery. Ride on, baby, you and I can find the key. Ride on, we can unlock each other's destiny. I taste the breeze of freedom, it's tingling on my tongue. You and I out on the road will stay each other's destiny. I'll take you places that you've never seen. I'll take you places that you never dreamed. I'll take you places pictures in your mind. I'll take you places beyond the reach of time. So ride on, baby, won't you take a ride?